My name's Stephen Young Lee. I'm a ceramic artist and also the director of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts in Helena, Montana. I am originally from Chicago. My parents were born in Korea and immigrated to the US. I like to think of my work as almost like a cutting and pasting of different visual references from different cultures. It could be borrowing from elements of the form, or it could be borrowing from elements of the decorative motifs that are there, and pulling those all together I think is a really interesting thing to just kind of make it something that's more about like where we are today. My first introduction to ceramics came, I think, at an early age. When I was in junior high and high school, I would take classes, and I had a really fantastic ceramics teacher who showed me a lot about different techniques. I learned how to throw on the wheel and became really interested in just the material and how it worked. My early career in ceramics was as a functional potter, so when I came out of Alfred University I was making very simple, straightforward pots that would be used in the home. Over time, I started to just investigate new things and go down different roads with my work. So I started to make things that were very non-functional. A lot of my work in grad school dealt with like architectural fragments and kind of abstracted forms that were referencing history or some sort of degradation. After graduate school, I had an opportunity to participate in a fellowship, a creative exchange fellowship, and live and work in the town of Jingdezhen in China. Jingdezhen is, they call it the porcelain capital of the world, or the birthplace of porcelain. It's where porcelain was first discovered, and large-scale industrial production of porcelain continues to take place there. My work draws a lot from looking at historical reference points. China is certainly a big one because of the long history of it and the kind of global and economic impact that it's had. A lot of my work too references Korea, which is where my parents were born and then where my kind of ethnic culture is. And I look a lot at how the objects that were made during certain periods of time represent the philosophical viewpoints of that time or the social viewpoints at that time, and how some of that information comes out through the work that's being made. So one example is the Joseon dynasty in Korea. It was a neo-Confucianist social philosophy that was in place, and you see that in the work. There's kind of an emphasis on a lack of ornament, kind of a certain seriousness in the work. There are also these Joseon dynasty storage vessels that my work references them quite a bit, where you have two parts that make up a larger vessel that are put together, but then instead of striving for a perfectly symmetrical form, you might have a bit of a lean or warping on one side, in such stark contrast with, say, the Ming Dynasty in China, where you have this pursuit of perfection. I do try to recreate a lot of historical either forms or decorative images, and I think that in that practice I feel like I'm learning something about that culture. I'm like connecting with the artisans of that time. There's something universal about the way that people are using their hands and trying to create these objects. That's where a lot of my current work with these deconstructed vessels, each piece is so unique because the kiln is kind of altering the form. Every time the kiln door opens, like you're never quite sure what it's going to look like, and sometimes it's better than what you thought, sometimes it's worse than what you thought, and you never quite know what's going to happen, but you can kind of orchestrate that moment. It can be such an aggressive environment, and it's that point where, as ceramic artists, like you can't access the work anymore. It goes into the kiln and then it's just not, you can't see it. The other part of my work that I am constantly kind of engaged with is this idea of failure. I put a lot of time and energy into making sure everything is as perfect as it can be. Then there's that moment where the thing might break, or there's the big crack is evident, or something's happening to the work. I want the viewer to kind of understand that these aren't just like haphazard occurrences that are taking place. Like I'm not being flippant with the work. It is questioning that idea of value and how we start to look at value. So, how important is it that I intended to do something to the work? So if you have an object that has a big, crack in it, or if it collapses, but there's intent behind that, then it moves into the realm of sculpture. So, intent becomes a very important part of that process.